Thank you. Welcome to reInvent, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. Very excited to be presenting today along with two customers, BMC Software. We're also going to be talking with Thomson Reuters, and they're going to share some of their experiences with our service called Database Migration Accelerator. So today, agenda-wise, we are going to learn some details on our service very briefly, and then we're going to learn about the migration journey that Thomson Reuters had with our fixed price services. And then BMC is going to talk about some of our complementary advisory services around automation and some other support that we provided in their migration. So today, let's talk a little bit first about DMA and what our mission is. It's very simple for us. Our mission is to accelerate the successful migrations of the customer's database and analytics migrations. In this presentation, we'll go over a bit about how we do that, and also just hear from the customer more from a real-time perspective on how they feel about it. Now, oftentimes, we have customers, they need to migrate for various reasons. But they often find it's difficult or a lot of choices to choose from which database service do I choose? How do I get the support that I need? Customers also have to address risk. They may have expertise gaps within their teams. And what we try to do is not make sure they don't have to disrupt their business, but provide them a set of expertise and tools and deep migration experts with hands-on keyboard experience within relational databases. Now, DMA Advisory includes many resources that we have. I have them up here listed on the screen. But really what we do is we evaluate all the schema. We take a look at all the data, the application. You have to do both the database and the application. And we do it through a process that is heavy on the data collection side of the house. We have to collect and get as much data as we can on both the database and app. And then what we do is we go through and we review, analyze, and we produce what's called a solution document. The solution document can guide us in our choices in how we choose to get the migration done. Now, when would you engage DMA? There's a lot of different reasons. Often it starts with folks don't know where to start. Where would we begin this? It's one thing to take a look at a workload. It's another thing to take a look at an entire portfolio of databases and applications. And really, you may have other companies that say, gosh, we want to do this, but we really need to reduce our risk. We might have a need for zero downtime migrations, so we don't disrupt anything. We also have times when there's emergent business needs. We have to vacate a colo in some time that we didn't expect. So data center exits are a very common tipping point, but so are licensing renewals. Oftentimes, licensing renewal is going to be your number one. But there's often planning where customers will go through plans and they need help just with the planning so they can get started on a migration. So this is an image of essentially how our service works, and I'll start on the left for you here. We start out with some type of workload or portfolio of workloads. From there, those are typically commercial and often on-prem already. Then we do a portfolio and workload discovery and analysis. That's where we're collecting lots of data. We have used tools like Schema Conversion Tool and Database Migration Service as some of the tooling. But during that time, we also need to understand the future state architecture. What does this need to look like? How does it need to operate? What kind of resiliency does it need? And from there, we work out the entire workload migration plan along with the solution document. Now, from there, we have some options. In some of our largest migrations, we actually need professional services, partners, some self-migration, and DMA all involved when we're talking thousands of databases and workloads. Oftentimes, it might just be one. Maybe they'll use Database Migration Accelerator for a fixed fee motion. But today, you're going to hear two different stories. One was complimentary, no charge to the customer. One was fixed fee. So there's multiple ways that we can help. We also recently launched DMA Last Mile. So if you've had a migration done with us and we turn over the code, there's still some pieces to move it into production. We can help with that to the point that the customer can then launch it into production. Now I'm going to show you a quick breakdown of what our average migration looks like. And if I can call your attention, there's 3 items on there that have double-digit percentages. If you really take a look at the database schema conversion, the application conversion and remediation, and the testing and the bug fixing, these are very important areas, but let's not forget about the single digit. There's a lot to do in the single digit, from even just making sure your future state architectural design is set up. You also have integration with third-party applications in some cases. But I'd like to call your attention down to performance tuning. Performance tuning is one of the most overlooked that we observe, or sometimes it just completely gets missed. And often customers might take a look at Aurora or RDS and say, geez, it's not performant. When in fact, it's really a matter of tuning and testing and really working hard on that part to make sure that it works as good or even faster than their prior solution. Now, these kind of projects can be complicated. They require a lot of people from both the AWS side, the account team, and the customer side. We typically are working with their database teams and their application teams. When we have good harmony between those 2 teams and they can work with us, we can move incredibly fast. One of our biggest challenges often is the application code. We have to see that, but only the metacode. We don't need to see customer data, but we do need to understand exactly how the application is built. This allows us to accelerate and move very fast. And so as we take a look through this is your average project. It can be plus or minus a few percent in different areas. There's some where we have to do a lot more testing. Now, DMA has expertise in all of these areas. We have database engineers, project managers, program managers, our leadership. But in the case of fixed fee migrations, it is a hands-on keyboard refactoring service that we do with experts. Now, I'm going to have a couple customers come up and talk today. And we have the pleasure of having 2 of them to talk about their journey. First, I'd like to welcome up Bart Matzek to talk about the journey that Thomson Reuters had with DMA. Bart? Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Good afternoon, everyone. I work in the platform engineering organization within Thomson Reuters and lead a team of solutions engineers that provide solutions, services, and people to our product engineering teams to help them accelerate their migrations and assist with their modernization activities. Think of it as a professional service function within Thomson Reuters. At TR, we have over 20,000 employees in 100 countries globally. We're a leading provider of business information services. Our products include highly specialized information-enabled software and tools for legal, tax, accounting, and compliance professionals, as well as a leading news organization, Reuters. So before I get into the details about DMA, I want to talk a little bit about our journey to the cloud because I think it's kind of important to understand the history. I want to highlight that we started in 2015 really building out cloud-native applications. So our goal was to learn from the ground up on how to build cloud-native applications, but then I'm going to jump into 2018 where we sold half of our business. This accelerated our move to the cloud. Along with that sale, we sold 7 data centers. We had over 400 applications running in those 7 data centers on roughly 10,000 servers. We had 3 years to get out. So we put in place a process and a migration factory that really focused on moving the applications and the data to the cloud with as little change as possible. This was a rehosting effort. It wasn't a modernization opportunity. So we moved the things. So we had migration patterns in place that supported the technology stacks that we wanted to have running in the cloud. We built out the application infrastructure so the application teams themselves could focus on actually just moving the apps, not have to worry about that, building the infrastructure. We also built out database infrastructure, keeping everything as similar to on-prem as we possibly could. That included running Oracle in the cloud. It included running MS SQL in the cloud. We just didn't want a lot of change. We wanted to get the applications out. The goal was to get out of the data centers. So none of that was ideal, but given what we needed to do in our timeline, it was necessary to hit those dates. And then in 2021, we launched a $600 million change program. And one part of that investment was to drive an exit of our largest data center. And this is triple the size of the previous migration. So we've got 800 applications, roughly 40,000 workloads. And again, we're going to rehost and not do a lot of modernization. But we want to do some. We've got some applications that do need to modernize on this one, so I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. So the goal of the change program was really to transform our business, our company, from a holding company to an operating company. Holding company with separate entities to an operating company with more shared platforms and capabilities. We needed more consistency and efficiency. And the first thing we did, we had really 4 key objectives that we were kind of focusing on. The first one, reimagining the customer experience. We wanted to provide a modern, digital, self-service approach to standardizing our commercial terms for our customers, our billing processes, our support channels. The second thing was optimizing our TR products and portfolio, really focusing on our high growth products, and really with a goal to create more sales channels with partner opportunities. The third, we wanted to simplify our operations and reduce our expenses. And this is really about more shared platforms, more capabilities, a move to cloud, a move to DevOps with more automation. And then finally, we wanted to create an inclusive culture of world-class talent. Working on the latest and greatest technologies allows us to retain and attract talent. So today, obviously, we're here to talk about DMA. So the part that I have in the yellow box there around modernizing the database, I'm going to touch on that now. But really what we wanted to do as part of this effort with the change program was, it was an opportunity for us to take advantage of the automation, the scale, and the power of the cloud databases. We wanted to create a nice, easy to manage chunk of work that we could offload and then re-implement back with the business. And this is also an area that we don't have a ton of experience with. So we wanted to move the modernization needle just a little bit further. And there's obviously a lot of challenges that come with that. And we had some big questions. How do we do that? So how do we choose the right database type? There's a ton to choose from. How do we migrate the data from a different source to a new target, and in some situations, keep that data in sync? What are the application code changes that needed to happen? What types of testing do we need? How do we operate in the cloud, including tuning and performance? And then how do we train our engineering and our operations teams to handle all those situations? It's a big list of questions. We wanted some help there, so we reached out and started exploring DMA. So Amazon's been a great partner for us. We've got a really good relationship with ProServe. Getting in touch and connected with DMA was really simple. The first thing we did was sit down with them and go over our process. So our migration process really consists of four steps. At a high level, I'll just kind of break them down for you. Discovery, it's really about just kind of understanding the application, understanding the big dependencies, the database type, the operating systems, the number of workloads, just getting a feel for what we have to move. The next step is the migration planning. So the information from discovery comes to migration planning, where we actually get into the details. we build out an artifact that includes logical architecture, the database types, specifics about the instances that we need, account details, security information. It's a very comprehensive document that then gets fed into migration execution, where we have a team or a migration factory that is actually building out that infrastructure so our app teams can deploy their apps. We assist with data migrations and so on and so forth until we get that up and running. And then we finally complete an operational checklist as part of that step, which is then fed into the cutover and operations. So when we met with DMA, our goal was to bring them into the discovery and migration planning parts of our process. And we added a step in there for the schema conversion tool. We wanted, the DMA team requires the results of the SCT. We shared the DDL of the database, and we shared source code to come up with a complexity score. DMA would provide a complexity score ranging from 1 to 5, 1 being very simple, 5 being more complex. And that is also used to gauge how long it's going to take to migrate the data and give us a cost to migrate that data. The other thing we decided as part of this step was not to include any databases with PII. We didn't want to deal with any data security issues, so we chose not to bring those through. Our focus for DMA would be on categories 1, 2, and 3. And then we've got some instances where we need a deeper engagement for categories 4 and 5, but the focus now is on 1, 2, and 3. So the other part that we wanted to do as part of this was build out a black box service. We wanted a very tight partnership between the DMA team and our application teams to learn more about the schemas, learn more about the environment, the application themselves, and then bring in DMA team members that, by the way, had very strong expertise and soft skills so they could pull information from the app teams. So what happened as part of this process is the DMA team would work from a copy of the database. They would create a new target. They would convert the schema. They would migrate from the old source to the new target. And then they would take a copy of the source code and start working towards the code changes that are needed for that. And then DMA would produce a runbook artifact, which is really filled with the details and information that is needed to pass that back over to the application team to implement. So it'd be the migrated database, it'd be the source code, and then a partnership to work on things like functional testing, performance testing, tuning, and then finally, decommissioning once the app was up and running. So that was the process that we talked about. The next thing was to really try it out. We chose to pilot this on a Category 1 database with one of our legal applications. The process from end to end took about 8 weeks, and we did everything that I just described on the previous slide. The app team made a copy of the database, they moved it out to Amazon Cloud, where DMA would work on it. The DMA team would then create a new source, which was Aurora Postgres for this example. They converted the schema, they migrated the data, and they also provided the changes to the app code. So this is a huge win for us. They did this in approximately 8 weeks. And it allowed us a basis to start exploring this further. And it also provided us with the added benefit of our app teams being able to focus on the core value of their product. They didn't have to worry about that problem of converting the data. And then it also provided us with an opportunity to learn some things along the way. So once we proved that that part of the process worked, we started to scale out our effort even more. We started to run SCT scans on databases for 85 other applications. We've got 31 plans for moving 31 of those into DMA. So far in just this year, DMA has converted 1 application database that has gone live. They've converted 11 other databases for us that are ready for app migrations. And then there's 3 more in process, and we're queuing up a bunch more for 23. All of this keeps our app teams focused on features. It simplifies our operations and reduces our expenses. It allows us to take a step towards modernizing just a little bit. And then it keeps our engineers learning and progressing in the cloud. So that was the migration portion of DMA. We also wanted to take a look at operations. There's a big piece here that we still needed to learn about. Some of the application teams, in fact, were very eager. They started converting their own databases. We had one of our teams that had 10,000 schemas that they needed to convert in 45 days to hit our scale testing timelines and the dates that we needed to hit for migration. So they got a jump start on that using the same tools that DMA uses. So they'll use SCT, they'll use DMS, and they started that process. We had 200 terabytes of data to move in 45 days. So that was quite an effort and quite a challenge. And of course, there's going to be bumps in the road. And we ran into some. We had issues with data types and type mapping. We had issues with just being able to scale to the throughput numbers that we needed to hit. But DMA helped us troubleshoot those things. They helped us make the proper configuration changes. They helped us keep the process moving. That was a huge win for us and kept us on track. We actually hit our date of 45 days and stayed on target because of that effort. However, it still didn't quite address the operational side. We had a lot of questions. How do we test? What do we need to do for operations? How do we train our engineers and teams? So this is another area that we wanted to work on DMA with. We brought them in midstream to help us come up with a plan for that. So they brought technical experts with architecture and tooling knowledge. They brought performance and tuning expertise as well. And they partnered with our internal operations teams to put the proper processes in place and really explore and learn our environments and our architecture. They provided hands-on training workshops for us. They participated in our daily scale testing meetings, and they helped us solve and troubleshoot problems along the way. They were in our daily scale testing meetings, working through issues with us. And all of this helped us along the way. We learned along the way. It greatly reduced our learning curve, and it further prepared us to launch some of our big flagship products in 23. So far, our initial results are really positive. So, as you can imagine, there's going to be many lessons learned. I just want to call out a few here. Defining and sharing your process. The ProServe and DMA in our conversations early was a key thing that we did. It helped clarify the scope of work, the roles of each of the teams, and the responsibilities of each of the teams. Make sure to do that up front right away. Make sure to engage the right experts. This is a partnership. As much as we want to say black box, there still needs to be dialogue. DMA brought very good DMS engineers, TAMs, engineering and tuning architects. We brought in our subject matter experts to really help get quick answers to questions. Knowing your infrastructure limitations. You don't move 200 terabytes of data without learning a few things there. We had teams focused on this in daily stand-ups. DMA was at the table with us. We ended up having to increase the number of DMS instances. We had to make some configuration changes around data types. We had to adjust our direct connect pipe because we didn't want to impact products that were actually running in the cloud already, so we had to throttle that and maintain our targets for throughput. Be ready with functional performance and scale testing. Baseline metrics, super important to have. You have to know what your goals and your targets are to have success. We, on some of our products, are very good at that. In other areas of our products, we need to improve. But having good baselines and having good targets in sharing those with DMA was really important for us. Finally, trust the process. It's not going to be perfect. DMA brings extensive Oracle and MS SQL knowledge to the table, and they helped us troubleshoot along the way. Just continue working with them through all those bumps. So in closing, we're more than halfway through our next set of migrations, and this is our biggest one. Working with DMA provided us with another resource to take some of that pressure off of our application teams by taking care of an isolated problem. TR leveraged DMA experts and Amazon tools and proved that we could integrate them into our process and convert and migrate our legacy database estate. We're not quite there yet, but we've made a ton of progress. And a lot of that is thanks to DMA. So that's all I have for today. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Bart, thank you. We appreciate Thomson Reuters as a customer, and we've learned a lot from you guys too. Also, what a great story. 10,000 schemas in 45 days. That's automation. A big part of what we do is automate, automate, automate. A 1% change in schema automation can mean a lot in terms of in-person hours and human level of effort. With that, I would like to bring up Alvin Hom, Solutions Architect for BMC, to talk about DMA Advisory Services. Alvin, come on up.
Thank you, Doug. Hi, my name is Alvin Hom. I'm a solution architect with BMC, working for our SaaS transformation team. That's helping moving our internal applications to the cloud. So you may be wondering, who's BMC and what do we do? BMC Software started in the 1980s, helping companies manage and operate their mainframe applications. We quickly expanded from those roots to managing mission-critical applications, right, and distributed applications. Today, our goal is to help companies run and reinvent their business and become autonomous digital enterprise. We identify 5 major characteristics of autonomous digital enterprise. First one is providing a transcendent customer experience. You want your customer to be engaged, but you also need to provide good performance to make sure your customers are engaged. We want to leverage automation everywhere to automate and scale, right? Because humans are in short supply. We want to leverage enterprise DevOps practices to move quickly from development to production cycles. We want to be data-driven businesses to leverage data as an asset to make analytical decisions. And lastly, we want to adopt adaptive cybersecurity practices to make sure our applications are well protected. So BMC has 3 major product lines that help customers move to the autonomous digital enterprise. We have BMC Control M. That's helping workflow and data flow, automate the workflow and data flow. We have BMC Helix for IT service management and operation management to manage and operate your IT infrastructure. And lastly, we have BMC AMI and Computer to protect your mainframe investments and modernize your mainframe applications. So altogether, we have over 10,000 plus customers, a large percentage of the Fortune Global 50 customers, and we've been part of the Gartner's Magical Quadrant for the last 9 years for IT service management. So what was our challenge, right? Why were we looking at moving to the cloud? So as we transitioned from on-prem and like licensed software into a SaaS company, we had rapid growth. Right? As part of that rapid growth, we faced business challenges to provide consistent performance for our applications. Right? You'll find like customers have various sizes, various data loads, and it was critical that we maintain that performance even with the variety of customers. We face a lot of operational challenges because we have a small IT staff and also database experts managing a large fleet of database instances, thousands of database instances. And the database team would be involved with like a lot of manual tasks, provisioning databases, looking at performance incidents, performing backup and recovery, setting up monitoring, right? Responding to alerts. So they're very busy. And we have database challenges. As we mentioned, we have 7,000 database instances, and they're pretty complex because our application's metadata driven. We have over 10,000 schemas, lots of indexes, lots of views that have been built out by the application teams. And our applications are also customizable by end customers. They can introduce new schemas, new queries. And our database team have to kind of still maintain the performance SLAs for those customizations. So we ended up with a lot of work orders, right, and a lot of manual work. So in our self-managed environment, our teams spend like 60% of their time performing like incident remediation, and then the rest of the time doing provisioning, backup, restore, and performance monitoring. So our business is always looking at like reducing costs, the total cost of ownership, right, from the database, like database license, the database infrastructure, and also the operational cost, right, the operation personnel to maintain the infrastructure. So our business objectives for moving to the clouds were to improve our customer experience by guaranteeing consistent performance. Automate a lot of the IT operation tasks so that we can scale as we grow. And to reduce costs. So how did we do it? BMC engaged with the DMA team to understand the existing database architecture, right? Kind of look and analyze the current state of the database and come up with recommendations on how we move to the future state. We were not looking to just improve like a couple of databases, but we were really looking at how do we get to that future state. We were managing like thousands of instances, right, to make sure that we meet the future growth. And we need to do that with our limited team size, right? Remember, most of the teams are very busy like performing the existing maintenance on the existing infrastructure. So DMA helped us by providing templates for automation for IT operation tasks. So this set of automation included the automating the provisioning, right? Provisioning of databases for customers, automating the backup and restore of the databases, automating the failover, HA and failover, and also managing, we have like multiple environments for each customer, development, QA, and production. We needed automations to kind of move the data between the various environments, dev to prod and prod to dev. And we also needed automations to kind of manage the clusters, right? Look at how do we automate adding additional capacity, adding more nodes, right? Increasing the storage. All those needed automation. And lastly, we needed to prove out our database performance, right? We needed to ensure our applications still maintain our SLAs as we move to AWS. And that meant a lot of performance testing. We did a large number of load testing on the existing data to make sure that the performance were similar. So to solve some of these challenges, we worked with the DMA team to design a single tenant Aurora architecture with one writer node and one reader node, and a RDS proxy that sit in front of it that does the connection management and also the forwarding of the traffic to the right instances. And our applications that we both have OLTP and also reporting applications would talk to the RDS proxy, and then the RDS proxy would route that traffic to the right instances. As I mentioned earlier, in our self-managed environment, right, the failover was manual. We were going from a SQL Server architecture, and that typically require manual operations to failover a database, right? And that, the complete cycle of detecting a database needed failover, right? Looking at whether failover is required to actually triggering the failover, right? And getting it up and running, that took an hour. With the new Aurora architecture, we were able to get pretty much automated failover that can be done in seconds instead of hours. We are leveraging RDS performance insights to monitor our Aurora fleet. So if you're just, monitoring a couple of database instances, right? Those are, pretty straightforward. But we needed to kind of monitor hundreds, thousands of instances, right? Of various sizes, of various applications. So that require a lot of tooling and automation. So this is another example of the DMA Advisory Services helping us achieve the operational excellence, right, that we needed to scale and manage our environments in Aurora. We're also using the Amazon DevOps Guru for Aurora. As I mentioned earlier, right, our team had a lot of incidents, and those are typically related to performance issues that the customers are facing. So those could be due to a bad query, right? It could be due to customizations that the customer have introduced. So there are a lot of kind of manual work that require investigation. So we're leveraging DevOps Guru to come up with recommendations and prescriptive steps on how we can apply those recommendations. It's whether to kind of additional indexes required or database tuning on a query is required. We've integrated the performance monitoring with our internal SRE dashboard. So we have internal SRE dashboards that's built for a 360-degree monitoring of our customer environment. So you can see the application performance, database performance, infrastructure, networking performance. So we were able to take the database metrics from Aurora using CloudWatch metrics and stream it into our SRE dashboard using the BMC Helix operation management tools. So we could have a single place where it can correlate incidents and identify whether issues are related to database, and if they're database, right, what issues we needed to investigate. So what's the result? What did we achieve? We were able to get our provisioning down from days into minutes. And a lot of that is with automation, right? And also we have to build additional DevOps pipeline, right? We were not just automating the database provisioning, but the entire pipeline of getting the customer up and running, right? Starting the database, starting application, right? All those are automated. We changed from a manual failover to an automated failover that can be done in seconds. We're using the AWS backup and recovery tools to ensure our data meet our RTO and RPO objectives. And we also using the encryption capability of AMS to make sure the data is encrypted at rest. And we also offer our customers the capability, not just using like out-of-box key, but also bring your own key capability by leveraging the AWS key management services. And we've integrated monitoring and remediation to kind of reduce the alert fatigue that our teams were facing. So the business outcomes we were able to achieve. So we were able to deliver increased availability and performance of our database to meet that objective of improving customer experience. We were able to reduce a lot of the manual operations into turn those into automated tasks. Right? We were able to kind of reduce our operational labor by 60%. And we were able to reduce our total cost of the database infrastructure and license by 40%. So DMA helped us achieve or accelerate our database modernization by about a year. So thank you very much. Back to Doug.
Thank you. That's a great story. So there's another great story. 1 full year. That's a lot of teams. And so hopefully today we were able to show you a couple different ways we can do it. Those are not the only ways. We have many customers. But these highlighted some of our most interesting stories where you see big improvements. You see 60% reduction in costs. So when you don't have to administer because you're on a managed database, what we really find is you get out of the administration business and you have the opportunity to innovate and start building things that matter for your customers, improve query performance, things that are not what we might refer to as just keeping the lights on. So thank you so much. What a great story, Alvin. Fantastic. So we have a couple things here. We're almost wrapped up and we're going to move into a question and answer session. I did want to share a few other sessions that are related to migrations. And DAT220 is what's new with database migrations. That's going to be a big update on database migration service along with schema conversion tool. And so if you have the chance, these are some good ones. There's also migrating sensitive Oracle workloads. Sometimes zero downtime migrations are necessary with parallel operations going on for a long period of time. So we'll hope you get to get out and see some of those sessions there.